This module discusses employment laws that protect employees against illegal discrimination. The word discrimination means making distinctions among people. In human resource management, we want to avoid illegal discrimination based on a person's membership in a protected class. Illegal discrimination means making distinctions that harm people by inappropriately using an individual's membership in a protected class as a basis for employment decisions. For example, firing an employee simply because of this employee's gender or race. Race and gender, as you'll see later, are protected classes. To make sure everyone has an equal employment opportunity and not illegally discriminated in the workplace, there are many Equal Employment Opportunity Laws, or EEO laws. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Age Discrimination in Employment Act of 1967, among others. We will not address all of them in this video. Employment law can be a separate course itself. Instead, we will highlight a few important laws to give you some general idea. We will cover some key points, and you can read about the others in the textbook. Out of many of the employment laws listed here on the slide, the most important one is Title VII, which we will go over more into detail in the next slide. Other important ones include ADEA, which prevents discrimination against persons aged 40 and over. ADA, which prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities. Note, some of these laws only apply to certain organizations, sometimes based on size, sometimes based on the nature of the business. For example, ADA only applies to employers with 15 or more employees, and ADEA only applies if the organization has 20 or more employees. I don't expect you to memorize all these laws, but what I do ask you to do is to read about their most important features and be able to recognize them. For example, if I asked you which federal law protects against age discrimination, you should be able to tell me it is ADEA. One law we will memorize is Title VII, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, and pregnancy. Please take a look at these and try to remember them. This act was probably the most significant single piece of legislation regulating equal employment opportunity in the history of the United States. It changed the way that virtually every organization in the country did business, and it even helped change employers' attitude about discrimination. Even in cases where the law does not directly apply to an organization, it has been used to evaluate internal policies to attempt to ensure fairness and equity to all workers. Let's discuss some of the important concepts introduced by Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. There are two groups listed here. The first group is the types of discrimination charges that an employee may file against a company. In other words, when the employee feels that they have been illegally discriminated. The second group is the types of defense a company can use against these charges. We will go over three of the most commonly used terms highlighted in the bold fonts. You can read about the others in the textbook if you're interested. Disparate treatment exists when individuals in similar situations are intentionally treated differently, and the different treatment is based on an individual's membership in a protected class. For example, a qualified applicant is not hired because she's over 60 years of age. but another younger and equally qualified applicant is hired. Disparate impact occurs when an officially neutral employment practice disproportionately excludes the members of a protected group. It is generally considered to be unintentional. For example, a firm may have a height requirement for a position. Although height is not a protected class, this requirement may unintentionally discriminate women, as women on average are shorter than men. In other words, the height requirement may be a neutral requirement, yet it unintentionally and adversely impacted women applicants. If a company receives these kinds of charges, claiming that an employee is either adversely treated or impacted, the company can defend itself by using one of these three defenses listed on the second half of the slide. We will talk about BFOQ in this lecture. BFOQ stands for Bona Fide Occupational Qualification. It is a qualification that is absolutely required for an individual to be able to successfully do a job. For example, Federal Aviation Regulation requires a commercial pilot to be under 60 years old. If an applicant who is over 60-year-old applies for the pilot position, got rejected due to age, and files a charge against the airline company, the airline company can successfully defend itself based on BFOQ because age is a requirement for the job. Some other BFOQ examples may be based on sex. Sex can be BFOQ when authenticity or genuineness is required. For example, when you need to hire a female actress to play a female role. Sex can also be BFOQ when protection of personal privacy of customer or coworker is required, such as when you need to hire a male prison guard for a male prison. We must discuss EEOC when talking about equal employment opportunities. EEOC stands for Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. EEOC is a federal agency that investigates allegations of illegal discrimination. This website will be the first place you need to visit if you ever encounter any illegal discrimination issues. Okay, now we have looked at different laws that will protect employees' equal employment opportunities. Let's move on to the last topic of this chapter, sexual harassment. Sexual harassment can be loosely defined as conducts that are unwelcome and of a sexual nature. One of the key things to remember here is the term unwelcome. There are two types of sexual harassment: quid pro quo and hostile environment. The key difference between the two is quid pro quo is a one-on-one exchange relationship. Let's say a boss demotes a subordinate when they refuse to go out for a date. Hostile environment, on the other hand, is when the work environment interferes with one's job. For example, a female worker regularly gets sexual comments from other male workers. This slide concludes this module. I hope that by completing this module, you can become familiar with different laws that protect employees against illegal discrimination and have a basic understanding of sexual harassment. By learning about these topics, you are better equipped to protect your employees and yourself.